Welcome to the Man Up God's Way podcast, a show that dives into the real, raw, and relevant issues for men and their faith, life, and community. Now, your host, Jody Burkeen.
All right, guys, here we are on a Monday night. My name is Jody Burkeen. I am the founder of Man Up God's Way and your host tonight on the Man Up Monday podcast. We want to welcome you to this episode. Really excited about our guest tonight. We'll get to him in just a minute. But if you get an opportunity, would you share this on all your social media feeds? Just hit that like button and share button, and you can send that to all your friends. We need as many people as we can possibly watching this. Men, share this with your small groups, your men's groups, and just get the word out about our podcast. We're really excited about it. This is episode number 35, and it's been going really well this year. Had some great guests and got another good one here tonight. And so I'm in the studios tonight. I got my host with me, my co-host, Mr. Ben Neely. How you doing, buddy?
Good to be back.
You good? I'm glad you are back. It's been a while.
Yeah. A little bit of work travel. We took a couple of weeks off.
Yeah, act like you got to make some money.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
I'm a working man, so this isn't paying me anything.
That's good. So you went to Texas, didn't you?
Waco, yeah.
Waco.
Yeah. Going to Orlando next week. So remember, I won't be here.
Okay.
And that should be my travel for the year.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, you're a traveling man, dude. I'm glad you're back and all safe and sound. Family doing good?
Yeah, family's doing well. Everything's good. Grandkids are wild.
Awesome.
Yeah, life's good. No complaints.
Yeah, the picture you sent above, oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I sent him a picture of my 4-year-old grandson working on his battery-operated tractor in my side yard in his underwear. Luckily, we've got a 6-foot privacy fence. Nobody saw him. He's in like a 15-minute span. He worked on his tractor in his underwear. He swam in the pool in his underwear, and he played in the sandbox in his underwear.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's ridiculous.
That's great. Oh, so to be that young again.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
and to look that good in underwear.
Yeah, that's why my light stays off in the mirror or in the bathroom when I get up in the morning. So you, how much weight have you lost so far?
I'm holding steady. I'm holding steady right around 210. Yeah, 211.
That traveling's not doing you any good.
No, I ate terrible. I bet I gained 3 pounds last week just the way you eat when you travel. So but I'm back at it. We just joined a gym.
Good.
So me and Stacy are going to start going to the gym together, and couldn't tonight because of the podcast. But yeah,
good for you, dude.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm pretty plateaued as well, so I haven't lost any weight.
Yeah,
I'm giving up, I think. So just hoping something happens between now and Christmas or Thanksgiving. Gosh, I'd like to lose 10 pounds just before Thanksgiving gets here.
Yeah.
Yuck. Well, guys, the way that we pay for our podcast is through our Man Up merch. That is manupmerch.com. You can get all the cool t-shirts. I've got one here. You saw Ben's right there, that little Man Up God's Way shirt. We also have our coffee, which is an amazing blend. It's a really dark, smooth blend. It's one of my favorites. We got our coffee mugs, which is right here. Got it full of water right at the moment. It's too late to drink coffee for me. And then we got our coffee mugs. This is one of my favorite coffee mugs. It's good size. It holds a lot of coffee, about a cup and a half of coffee. It's perfect for you to start off in the morning. And we also have our books, which I can't reach. I'll reach it real quick. Man Up God's Way, or Man Up Becoming a Godly Man in an Ungodly World. This was the first book I wrote. It's still on the Amazon bestseller list. I wrote it 10, going on 11 years now. It will be 11 in January. Yeah. And God has really blessed us with that. And we'd love for you guys to get it. You can get it on Amazon. I think it's only $14 or $10. It's either $10 or $14. I can't remember. But it's cheap. Get it. It's a great read. It's an easy read. I call it a 2-seater. If you put it on the back of the toilet, you'll be done in a couple of seats. But I think it'll change your life. So really excited about tonight's guest. We're blessed to have on with us tonight, Stephen Arms. Stephen, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Jody and Ben.
Awesome. Well, we're glad you're here. Let me get you on. There we go. get you on there. Good. We can, you're all the way in Portland, Oregon, correct?
That's right. Yeah, we live just outside of Portland in a suburb called Tigard.
Okay.
Yep.
So how's it been in Portland? Are you guys still in lockdown or?
You know, short answer is no. It's pretty open here. COVID for the most part is over. Um, you go downtown, you go into any like medical building, and they still make you wear a mask. And yeah, you go downtown and there's lots of people wearing masks. So it's still here, but at least they're not jamming it down your throat anymore.
Right. Biden just today said that the pandemic is over. So,
Yeah, it's the same here. Medical. When I go to the doctor, they're still making. You
oh,
wear
do they?
masks.
Yeah, I've been to the doctor forever.
Yeah.
I did go to urgent care not too long ago, but I didn't wear a mask in there.
Yeah, we did. They do at my doctor's office.
Okay. Yeah, we're in the Midwest in St. Louis, and things were kind of loosey goosey after about the first 6 months. After 6 months, we kind of went all cowboy on them, and they couldn't control us anymore. So, but I know you guys you went through some crazy stuff during the pandemic, and just having being up in Oregon and that northwest corner there is a very liberal and godless society. Unfortunately, I'm glad you're there trying to spread the good news.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's I saw something similar in Idaho. Idaho is just one state to the right, and it's a red state. And it was amazing in the 2 years that the pandemic was going on. I mean, people were just flocking over there. And I heard stories of people that lived in Spokane, which is in Washington. They would go over and drive to Coeur d'Alene, which is just 30 minutes to the east, to have dinner because they could have dinner at a restaurant without wearing a mask.
Right.
So yeah, it's been an interesting experience. I'm glad that it feels like we're finally on the tail end of it.
It's
Good.
crazy all the people that have been moving from California to Texas.
Yeah, that might turn into a blue state.
I know. That's what I said.
Oh my gosh, I hope not. I hope not. Maybe they'll change them over there.
Right.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I'm glad you survived. I'm glad you're doing well. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You're married. You just said a while ago that your wife is a saint and she's the greatest person that you've ever met in your life.
No, that's true.
Trying to give you some brownie points there.
Yeah, my wife is putting the kids down to bed right now, so I wouldn't be here tonight speaking with you guys if it wasn't for her. So she's the real hero tonight.
Awesome.
So about myself, I was born and raised actually in California. Spent my first 25 years of my life there. Went to college there, started my career there. Never expected to move. And then I met my beautiful wife and she turned my world upside down. So I followed her up to wonderful Portland, Oregon. Then we got married shortly thereafter. We got married in 2018. 9 months later, welcomed our first kid into the world, our daughter Claire. She's 3 years old now. And then we also have a son, Joe, who's 1 year old now.
Oh, awesome. Congratulations on that. So only 5 years married, 4 years married, I should say, going on 5 years. Congratulations. I got 32, just had 32 years. So hopefully we'll pray for you to get that far. How many you got now? 6, 7?
6 years.
6 years.
Yep.
So well, congratulations on that. So tell us about your life. I mean, growing up in California. So you said you grew up in California. Tell us a little bit about your family life.
Sure. So I am one of 4 boys. So I have 3 brothers. As you can imagine, the environment that I grew up in was a lot of sports, a lot of eating, a lot of testosterone. It was a ton of fun. I love my brothers a lot. I'm really close with my older brother. We're only 17 months apart. So we went to high school together, shared a lot of friends together, and just had an amazing childhood. My parents have a very strong faith and they have a beautiful marriage. They're like you, Jody. I think they've been married for 33 years now, I want to say.
Oh, wow.
And they're still, in love with one another. And they've just been an amazing example of what a godly marriage can look like. Especially, living on the West Coast, which, like you said, is a pretty liberal place. You don't see lifelong marriages like that all the time. So having them as examples has been huge in my life. I'm really blessed to have my mom and dad. I'm grateful for God for giving me them.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. That's a great to have great role models like that. One of the things I have 3 brothers and a sister, and we grew up in a divorced family, and between my family and my wife's family, between my parents and my wife's parents, there's 12 marriages. So she and I both understand what divorce. Yeah, exactly. That makes your eyes go, whoa, what you literally 12. I think my dad had 3, my mom had 2, Nan's dad had 4 or 5, and then her mom had 4. Like, it was just, we had that many marriages in between there. And when we got married, I remember, us, and not only between me and my wife, but my brothers and sisters all made this commitment to each other that, we would do whatever it took not to get a divorce. And so far, all of my siblings are married and still married after, I think the youngest one is 15 or 16 years married. So you just got to put in the work and put in the commitment that you're going to make it work. And it's not always easy. And you've got to continue to pray, continue to talk, and continue to concede on a lot of things. So that's what marriage is all about. So, well, congrats. So you got 3 brothers or 4 brothers, you said?
3 brothers.
3 brothers. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Where are you in that line?
I'm number 2, so
Okay.
second oldest. My older brother is just about to get married here in a couple weeks. So thinking about what I'm going to say for my best man speech at his wedding. And, it's
Awesome.
like, do I do it sweet or do I do it sour? Like,
yeah, those are always hard to do. I tried to be sweet at my brothers as much as possible. I definitely was my sisters. She was our baby. She was the baby sister, so we were really sweet with her. But yeah, sometimes you want to pick on them, but it might be good for you to go out in glory as a sweet guy.
yeah, you're probably right about that. I'll take your advice.
Well, good. And so, when did you leave California?
I left California in 2016.
Okay.
I met my wife. We met online, actually. So when we first started dating, we were dating long distance for the first maybe 9 months. And we pretty quickly realized, like, this is a woman that I could marry. She has really good values. She's beautiful. She's smart. She's fun to spend time with. So even dating long distance, I knew, like, there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to marry this woman. But, I didn't want to act too rashly. So I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to, like, move up there and date her near distance, right? Whatever the opposite of long distance is, we needed to do that first. So it felt like, as the man, I felt that God was calling me to go up and pursue her. I felt that it was my job to be the initiator, the one that was going to be the pursuer. So that's kind of one reason why I decided to make the jump and move to Oregon.
Okay. Awesome.
And
so you moved to Oregon without being married.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I got an apartment just by myself. We weren't going to move in together. That was not on the table. She was living with her sister at the time, and moved up here, and the risk paid off. She was the woman that I thought she was, and just an amazing person. And so after being up here for maybe 6 months, I popped the question. She said yes, and then the rest is history.
Oh, that's great. That is great. So that was 4 years ago, and so you guys didn't waste any time to have kids.
No, not at all. I mean, we both want a big family, and we got married when we were 27. So we weren't spring chickens, you know. It's
Right.
like, if you want a big family, you got to get going, you know.
Yeah, can't wait. My wife and I were married 12 years before we had kids.
Uh-huh.
But we were, yeah, I was 30, I think I was 32 when I had my first one, and I had one back there, one, and then 18 months later had another one, and then it was 12 years later we had twins. So I'm gonna be a dad. I'm gonna have kids in my house till I'm 65 years old, I think. So
Wow.
it's worth it though. They're a blessing, man. I hope you have a house full. I couldn't imagine doing it any other way. It's amazing. Well, congratulations. So you and your dad wrote a book, is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, how the book, and the book is called Milestones to Manhood, a Christian Rite of Passage to help your 13-year-old son make the leap from boyhood to manhood. So start off telling us your little journey, your journey to understanding who Christ is, and how he became a part of your life, and what that looked like, from your dad, and just to where you are today.
Sure. I think there were some pivotal moments in my journey. So I'll talk about the highlights. Full disclosure, I come from the Catholic Christian tradition.
Mhm.
So my story might not be what you guys are totally used to, but I think that there's a lot in common, and I definitely think that we're brothers and sisters in Christ. So I'll say that, I think my faith journey started when I was baptized. And, I was baptized as an infant. It was something that my parents made a decision for me at that point. But I also see it as a great gift that they gave me that gift of faith, and they raised me in a Christian household. I'm so grateful for them for doing that. So, like we talked about earlier, my parents gave me an amazing childhood. And one really special thing that they did, that my dad did, was on my 13th birthday, he gave me something called a Rite of Passage.
Mhm.
So it was a weekend that involved my dad, but also my older brother. I'm sorry, not my older brother. He should have gone on the trip, but he was homesick that weekend. Um, the weekend involved my dad, my grandfather, and two of my uncles. And it was basically a weekend where they told me that in their eyes, they no longer saw me as a boy, but I was considered to be a man of the family.
Hmm.
So that's what the purpose of the weekend was. It was for me to have a clear indication that your manhood has officially begun. And
Right.
all the men in your life surround you and tell you that. And that's what the book is about. The book is about a Christian Rite of Passage. We talk about our family story and how the Rite of Passage tradition got started. We talk about what exactly the weekend looks like and the different activities that we participate in. But then we also have a how-to guide. The whole second part of the book is
Right.
an instruction manual for fathers who want to organize a Rite of Passage for their own son. One of the reasons that we wrote the book is because all the grandkids in the family, my brothers, my male cousins, we've all had our Rite of Passage weekend at this point. We're all 13 and older. And so we figure, well, now that our family is kind of done with it for this generation, at least, why not put all this material that we've collected through emails, organizing back and forth, why not put it in a book that can be a resource for other families so that they can benefit from this tradition in the same way that our family has?
That's good. That's really good. I think that's one thing that the American culture does not do very well is pass on a legacy. Learning to pass on some form of culture. We've got such a mixing pot of culture that we don't have one specific culture. When I look at other, Ben and I have spent some time in Haiti, and they truly have a culture there. Like it's a little messed up, but it's a culture. I've been to Mexico many times, and they have a great family culture, and They get together on Sundays or on the weekends, I should say. It's not even on Sundays, and the whole family, cousins, aunts, uncles, and everybody's there. And we don't really pass on that legacy of Christianity, much less passing over manhood. And so you were actually given an opportunity to be told that you were a man at 13 years old. What do you think that did for you later on?
Yeah, I think that, in hindsight, there's really two really distinct ways that it changed my life. For one, when I was a teenager, I was always really confident in my masculine identity. And I don't mean to say that I was like immediately, in this man body at 13 years old, and I was this stud of a child. What I mean by that is that anytime that another adult, whether it was a parent, a parent of a friend or a teacher, if they ever like addressed the class and said like, boys, settle down, the first thing that always came to my mind was, I'm not a boy, I'm a man. My dad told me, anytime anybody ever addressed me as a boy, that was the first thought that I had in my mind, was like, no, this person doesn't know. I knew that they didn't know. I didn't hold it against them, but that was always my first thought. One time actually, so I did Boy Scouts growing up, and one time one of the parents was like, said that exact thing. They were like, boys, settle down. And I spoke up. I was like, excuse me, we're not boys, we're men. And the parent just rolled with it. He was like, well, young men, please settle down, But so I think I was really confident in my masculine identity. I never really questioned like, when is manhood going to start? Like, is it going to start when I get married? Is it going to start when I have my first kid? Like, when does manhood start? I think because my dad and my grandpa like basically looked me in the eye and told me at the end of this weekend, you are a man now. Like, I never questioned that in my life. I think the second way that it really affected my life, and this goes back to my faith journey, was in college. So during my Rite of Passage weekend, some of the advice that was given to me was that, I am a member of this family and we love each other unconditionally. And I am a member of a tribe of men that are here to support me through the ups and downs of life. And I can talk to those guys, my dad, my grandfather, my uncles. I can talk to them at any point in life if I ever needed advice, or if I was ever going through tough times. And in college, like many people, I really started to doubt my faith. I started to doubt my belief in God. I was meeting a lot of new people, a lot of new ideas. I wasn't surrounded by my family anymore, so I didn't have that, family network.
Right.
I was on my own, and I really wasn't sure I wasn't sure how my parents would react if I told them, I don't know if I believe in God anymore. I'm really struggling with this. So I was really hesitant to talk to them, but I also knew that I couldn't go through this alone and I needed to seek counsel. And it was that Rite of Passage weekend where my dad and my grandfather said, you can talk to us about anything. We will love you unconditionally, and we have your best interest at heart. It was those words that were spoken at my Rite of Passage weekend that gave me the confidence to go back to my dad and my grandfather and just tell them, I'm really struggling. I'm not sure if I believe in God, but tell me, like, why do you believe in God? Tell me more about why do you believe? And they were able to share more about their faith journey. The light bulb had kind of clicked at that moment. Like, I was actually interested now, because I felt like I needed their support. I wasn't just a bratty little kid, that felt like he knew everything. I was really humbled. And they weren't able to answer all of my questions, but they were able to get me back on the path, So the second part of my answer is that I'm not sure that I would be practicing my faith today if it wasn't for this weekend.
Wow. That's pretty stout.
Yeah. Stephen, did you go through a period where, I know you were questioning God, but we talked to a lot of guys that They came onto the faith from childhood. It's all they ever knew. And then there's this period of life where they have to find their Jesus, not their parents' Jesus. Right. We believe a lot of people, I'm not saying everybody goes through that, but a good number of, I mean, I'm 51, Jody's like 61. So we meet a lot of men that are older and talk to a lot of men who are older that always have this testimony or this story where they transition from, they might not have fallen away or done all kinds of bad things, but there's this transition where they go from the Jesus that they were taught and grew up with and to their own personal Jesus. What was that? Was there a journey of that for you? Was that part of this journey in college, or talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's an accurate way of describing my own journey. There was an element of that. I think that any kid who's raised in the church, they primarily experience their relationship with the Lord through their parents. That's just the nature of it, is that you're under their household. They're the ones literally driving you to church, right? And it was in college that it was like, well, I literally have to get in the car and drive myself to church. I was in the driver's seat all of a sudden. And so I think there was an element of having to develop my own relationship with Jesus instead of having my relationship with Jesus through my parents. I do think it was kind of part of the process of becoming a man for me, was leaving the faith of my childhood behind. Not that there was anything wrong with it. I was a kid, and then stepping into this more mature, this more beautiful relationship with Jesus as a man now.
Yeah. And then real quick, back to the Rite of Passage weekend. So you go, your grandfather, your uncles, your dad, they tell you you're a man. What responsibilities and things did they expect from you from that point on? So I'm sure if they're telling you you're a man, it's not just, hey, you're a man, you can talk to us. There's got to be and it's probably in the book. You don't have to go into all the details, but I'm assuming that there are things now that are expected of you, that responsibilities that are given to you that help to grow you from hearing that to actually being a man.
Yeah. Good. Becoming a man, just because my dad told me I was a man at 13, he didn't like kick me out of the house and say, I got to get a job and, get an apartment by myself. I wasn't an adult, right? I wasn't a legal adult. I was still a 13-year-old. He did hold me to a higher standard, I would say, after my Rite of Passage weekend. And, he could refer back to the weekend whenever we talked about like additional responsibility, like, well, now you have to mow the lawn instead of, I'm not going to mow the lawn anymore, you have to mow the lawn. And it's right. Like, well, why? Because you're a man now and you need to learn how to mow the lawn so that when you have a family of your own and a house of your own, you can take care of it. Right. So he was able to kind of contextualize like why the additional responsibility was actually a good thing.
That's good. That's good.
I would say another really cool thing after a Rite of Passage weekend in my family was, we have a pretty big extended family network. So when we gathered for holidays like Thanksgiving or Easter, there were always two tables. There was the adults table and the kids table. And after your Rite of Passage weekend, you were officially considered to be a man. So you could officially sit at the adult table and engage in adult conversation instead of just sitting at the kids table. So
that's got to be the best part of it all.
Yeah, right, that was really cool. Like physical
exactly.
Rite of Passage right there.
That was a big Rite of Passage, whether you went through a weekend or not. Yeah. That's great. So in this weekend, we've done a couple things like that, and we tried to raise our kids that way. It was one of those, as I was growing in my faith, my kids were too. I just had my kids and I just come to know the Lord. And I kind of grew trying to figure out what it was to raise my children, not only learn myself, but also raise my children. And One of the things that I studied quite a bit was the bar mitzvah, the Jewish tradition of, manhood and womanhood. And I love that tradition, because what it does is it basically takes the young man, and the father says, you're no longer under my rule, you're under God's rule. And he's saying that, it was good while you were under my rule, but now you've got to be under God's rule, and you're responsible for all your decisions and the things that you do from here on out. And I love that tradition. And, trying to raise, children in this world today is it's tough. Like they're, like you, as soon as you got to college, all of a sudden the world came at you 900 miles an hour. You got out of your Christian bubble, and the next thing you know, here you are in college, and you've got a million ideas. My kids that are 11 years old, I've got twin 11-year-olds right now. They're being inundated through social media, through school systems, through everything to discourage them in their faith and all of that. And that's, one of the things I want to do with their boy-girl twins. And, I want to, with both of them, I want them to understand who they are and whom's they are, to make sure that they try to get a better grip than what I probably taught my first two kids. We did a pretty good job with those two, but it wasn't instilled in them that today's you're a man. And I've tried to raise a man and a woman, and they're both 20 and 21. My daughter's married now, but you can just see that we raised them correctly. But that moment, like Ben was saying a while ago, the moment that they had to figure out who Jesus was to them, it was a little bit different than mom and dad's Jesus. It was a little bit different than, and they're going through that path that you went through while you were in college. And I hope we kept them grounded enough so that path doesn't veer off too far and they come right back. And so I think those weekends, I did a lot of father-son weekends with my oldest son, a lot of father-daughter weekends, to just get them away, just me and them. And mama did the same thing. And I know that, in the future, they're going to look back and go, those were pivotal times in my life. But right now, they aren't. And, I shouldn't say that they aren't, but
they don't admit it.
They don't admit it. There
Right.
you go. That's a good point. They don't admit it. So I really like the idea of a weekend like this to take your 13-year-old. That's a great time. It's, you're out of the tweens now, you're in the teens kind of deal. And you look back in culture too, we never had, up until I think it was less than 100 years, that we had the division of children, preteen, teenager, young adult. Like, we didn't used to have those divisions. It was child, man, woman. Like, there was no teenager, there was no, back in
preteen.
Preteen and all that kind of stuff. And back in the old days, you literally at 13 years old, you were either getting married or going to work, or doing something a lot more than what the kids are doing now today. And so we're raising, my point in saying all that is, we're raising our children now that are younger, longer. And it's affecting them later on down the road, because we don't have that responsibility. We're not giving them that responsibility to understand what being a man and a woman is. And we're not teaching them that correctly. So
so Stephen, I come from the exact opposite of what you come. I come from a good family. My parents were married for 40 something years before my dad died in 2009. But I knew of God, but we didn't go to church. Both my parents in the 80s were career people. So my mom was, in the 1980s, was making $70,000, $80,000 a year when a lot of women didn't even work. So God was like a sidebar. We went to Sunday Vacation Bible School at the Baptist Church. Long story short, my dad was he was not very active in my life. When I was like 11, 12, he became a truck driver. I don't remember my dad sitting me down and like giving me real wisdom. There was correction, but there really wasn't any wisdom behind it. And it left me being a boy for a long time, still to this day, in some cases in my life. So I think what you did and what your dad did is, obviously, it's a blessing, but I'm confirming that it's just a huge blessing. And I I think we make a mistake in the church sometimes when we separate the kids all the time. I know I don't mean you don't have like our kids or things like that, but the sons that I see in the church, that they're not perfect, but that, I don't know, there's a little bit more wisdom there. There's a little bit more dutifulness. There's a little bit more obedience, are the ones whose dads are hanging around them all the time, bringing them everywhere, this, that, and the other. So I think what your dad did was just amazing.
Yeah, I totally agree. The role of father is so important, and I think that's one reason why the country is kind of going the way that it's going, is because of the rise of fatherlessness, right?
Mhm.
The divorce rate and the number of kids that are being raised without a dad in the home, or even a dad who's engaged, right? I mean, there's so many distractions nowadays with the internet and smartphones, that it's like there's a lot of dads that are in the house, but they're not emotionally in the house. They're not really
Yeah,
connecting with their kids.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important to affirm your children. It's important to delight in what they delight in. That doesn't mean you delight in stupid things. There's things that you're not going to let your children do, but there's great power in the things that my dad did. I don't remember my dad sitting me down and saying, you're strong, you're smart, you're this, that, and the other. Some of that stuff may have been true, but I didn't hear it from my dad. So as I grew up, my relationship with God was kind of the same, a little bit distant, my dad really connected when he was correcting us. So there was always this waiting for God to hit me with a baseball bat when I rounded the corner, even though my dad didn't abuse me. But when my dad was really engaged, it was normally because he was home and he was correcting us because we were acting a fool while my mom was watching us. So that, I really do believe if you want your son to have a good relationship with God, you've got to mirror God to a degree in their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And many times, young men and women, the way that they view God is the way that they view their father. If they have a heavy-handed father,
Yeah.
growing up, every time you sin, you think, oh crap, here comes, I'm getting ready to get smacked by God and he's going to do this. Or if you have a parent that never engaged, now you're looking at God like, I can do whatever I want to, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. We have to get a better view of God a lot of times. And as we grow in the grace and knowledge of Jesus, he gives us that view. And it is that he is a holy and righteous God. And we need to understand that and live in that as much as possible, as well as teaching our kids to do that. And it takes wisdom. It takes a lot of years to get to that place to where you finally do that. But the catalyst, though, is really, like you're saying, is that 13, 14-year-old range, man, when you can just get them and you can look them in the eyeballs. I have an opportunity. I'm not doing it anymore, but for 3 years, I went to my son, and I took both my sons, but my oldest son, he and I went for 2 years, and we went up to the mountains, and we hiked in 8 miles, camped at 11,500 feet up in Colorado. And then we went with another group that another buddy of mine who also has a men's ministry called Cave Town. His name is Jeff Foth. And he's been doing this his whole life. His father took him up there, and he's taken his sons up there. And then he started taking other young men to disciple them. And we started tagging along as well. And they have this moment where at the end of the week, they gather everybody together, and it's called the affirmation circle. And we literally just sit around the circle, and we, let's say it's my turn, and he'll say, close your eyes. And, he'll say 3 guys who want to affirm Jody, and, hands will go up. And so they literally, for the next, 4 or 5 minutes, will affirm you in, who you are in God, and what you mean to him and what you mean to everybody there. And the cool thing about it was that, you get to do this with your sons as well. It's not just the group of guys, but so my sons are up there, and, I get to affirm him. And then later on, he gets to affirm me. And it's just, man, this bonding moment that nobody will ever be able to take away from me. I got to do that with my youngest son as well. He went up last year, and I think this will be my last year to go because I got so sick. I get altitude sickness every time I go, and I've been trying to tough it out, but I think I'm done because they almost had to take me out on a helicopter last year. But it's
Well,
go ahead,
Jody,
Steven.
you were saying that you're gonna remember that, and no one can take it away from you. I can tell you that your kids will remember that for the rest of their lives, and no one can
Right.
take it away from them too. That's one of those experiences that will always stick with them. So I want to give you a
That's
pat on the
good.
back. Good job, Dad.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you see,
Thank
when
you, Steven.
when
I
you're that
appreciate it.
age, they will start to
Yeah.
acknowledge
Gosh, I wish
it.
my kids are
Right now, they're just think they're cooler than school, right?
That's
Yeah,
so
they
true.
will. You remember those
Jody,
days.
how old did you say your kids were? 20 and
So
21?
I have a 21-year-old daughter who just got married this May, and then I've got a 20-year-old son who
Yeah.
graduated high school last year, and he took the year off, and just trying to figure out life. And then I got a 12-year-old or 11-year-old twins that are boy-girl twins, and so yeah.
So I'm 31. So
Okay.
in 10 years, it'll click for them and they will be so grateful that you're their dads. I'll tell you what it was for me. For me, a big part of it was becoming a dad myself.
Yeah.
That first week of taking care of my daughter and how much work it was and how
Right.
just it takes all of you,
Right.
that it was like, I looked at my wife, I was like, honey, we need to send our moms flowers right now.
Yeah.
You
And he
become so
tells them,
appreciative when you
yeah.
become a parent yourself.
That's true. I mean, it is. I mean,
Yeah.
that's when you realize. I mean, I've told my mom 100 times, I don't know how you dealt with me. And now we've got 3 grandkids, 8, 5, and 4, and my wife watches them 5 days a week. 2 of them now are in school, so it's just Bubba. His name is Miles, but we call him Bubba. And I'm telling you right now, I spend 4 hours with him, and I look at my wife. I'm like, I can't believe you do this.
Yeah.
I'm about ready to kill this kid.
Yeah.
It's tough
It
being
is
a parent,
tough. It is tough. I think that's the great thing about God lets us do it while we're young and stupid. You don't realize how hard it is. But I'm 53 now, not 61. Thank you very much. And it's harder. It is definitely harder. I've got 12-year-olds. Like I was just the other day. So I take my son to his football game. And dude, he's a freak of nature.
Yeah,
and so
I know
my son is the shortest kid on the team. He's one of the fastest kids on the team, and he hits harder than anybody else on the football field. And so, I'm all excited about the football game. I'm getting there, and I'm the oldest dad. I look like the granddad, as a matter of fact. And my son's out there, and I'm watching all these parents that are in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're all it's just weird. Like I can't imagine being back in that spot, watching them. And I'm watching Paul out there play, and he's every time he does something, he got this is no lie, he got the ball 6 times and scored 4 times.
Yeah,
like it was just
he's a
running, his running back, and it was so cute, man. It was awesome to watch him do that. And then he got 3 tackles on defense. And I was trying not to, like, I wanted to, football's my game, man. I love football, and I was just wanted to scream and yell at him and yell for him and all this, but it was so good. But I'm an old dad now. Like it's kind of, it's kind of weird. And my daughter's a freak in soccer. She's got, she scores just about every goal, and I'm wanting to scream and yell, and all these parents, like, they don't yell at football games. I'm like, come on, let's get excited. So, but it's a privilege, and it's a gift. Your children are a gift, and we got to treat it as such. And it's been a beautiful run for us. My wife and I are blessed to have the 4 kids that we have. God gave them to us specifically. They're all adopted. And, we got the first 2, we got Evie and Gabe at birth, and they're brother and sisters. It's a whole nother story. And then, out of the blue, we got Paul and Addie, and we got them at 16 months. And it's just been an awesome blessing for us just to raise them and watch them grow, and try to lead them to the Lord as much as possible. And that's, with the world. And I think that's, it's something special that when you have, parents in general, but specifically a dad. And that's really why, how Man Up God's Way started, because when I first gave my life to the Lord in 2003, I was an atheist prior to that. I didn't want to believe in God, didn't believe in God, didn't go to church, didn't want somebody telling me what I could and could not do. As a matter of fact, I liked my sin. quite a bit. I mean, it was fun until I realized what I was doing and why I was doing it. I gave my life to the Lord, and then it was one of those moments where I have kids, and I realized the responsibility that God has given me. Not only my wife, he started working on my marriage more than anything. That was the first thing that he really started working on, because at that time I was not. I did not support my wife. I did not. I wasn't the head of the household, the spiritual head of the household, much less I didn't even help in the house. So I think the only thing I did well was keep the yard mowed. That was it, and nothing else I did. I didn't take care. Lied to her all the time. And then finally, God taught me what it meant to be a man of God, number one, and then a husband, to love my wife as Christ loved the church. And then from there, what was really cool is that we both became really good parents, because we were now in tune, we were unified, we were on the same page, and allow us to raise our children where we're both, we're not going against each other, we're going with each other and not against the grain, and going with God. And it changed our life the moment that we started focusing on God first, through his son in the power of the Holy Spirit, to allow us to do what we're doing, even today. 18 years later, we've got a international men's ministry, and Ben's involved in that, and we go to Haiti, and the children go to that. And man, God is faithful when you put him first, and that's what we're praying for our children as well. So it's cool to see that you give props to your dad and your parents for what they did back then, because in college, to be honest, it could have gone the other direction if you hadn't have remembered, man, I can go talk to them. That's cool.
100%. It definitely could have. I mean, hindsight's 2020. It's hard to say what would have happened otherwise, but it definitely could have gone the other way. Absolutely.
Wow. So what do you think was what were people telling you? What was the school telling you? What were your professors telling you that made you even question God?
For me, it was, I stopped going to church because I didn't have my family there anymore, right? Like,
Right.
I had always gone to church with my family. That was my support network. I sat with them in the pew. And then all of a sudden, it was my responsibility to get myself to church.
Mm.
And after a while, it was kind of just apathy. It wasn't that I had any issues with it. It was just kind of like, well, this is kind of boring and I'm not really engaged. So I stopped going to church, and then it was like, now I'm making friends who don't believe in God, and they're not bad people, but they're not leading me closer to God. That's for sure. Um,
Mhm.
and then it was just kind of, it all just came to a head. And I think it was just that weight of, in the back of my mind, what would my parents ever think if they found out? At first I didn't talk to them about it. I just kind of kept it to myself, and it was kind of this secret. And eventually it just got to the point where it was like, I don't want to keep this a secret anymore. I want to talk about this. I want to work through this. I want to find out what is truth.
Right.
And then it's like, well, once you get to that point where now you're engaged and you're caring and you're asking questions, then it was like, I looked at faith with a whole new set of eyes. It was like, wow, Jesus is the truth. Like,
Mm.
that's pretty amazing. And Jesus is God, and he has paid the price for our sins so that we can go to heaven. Like, that's the purpose of life right there, right? The purpose of life. This life is so temporary. I mean, we're here on
Right.
earth for 100 years if we're lucky, but we're, you know, the next life is eternal.
Amen.
And so really the only thing that matters in this life is that you spend eternity with God in the next life, and that those around you spend eternity with God as well.
Mm.
That's really all that matters. And I think it was coming to that realization and just kind of wrestling with it, kind of wrestling with God for 3 to 6 months, and kind of getting my grandfather and getting my dad involved and having them support me through that wrestling match. It was like, it was just a beautiful time in my life. It was hard, it was a hard time in my life. emotionally it was tough, spiritually it was tough. It was like I had to go out and I had to make all new friends. I had to put my tail between my legs and go back to church. And all these people are like, oh, we haven't seen you in a year. Where have you been? Well, let me tell you, I've really been wrestling with things.
Been
But
a journey. Yeah.
yeah, it was a total journey. And I think, Catholics don't sing a lot, we there's music in mass, but not a lot of Catholics sing. It's like just the choir that sings, right? I don't, to be honest, I couldn't tell you why that is, but my dad never sung, so I never sung in mass. But then it was like when I had kind of my reversion, like I wanted to sing, I was singing every song during church because it's like singing is 2 times prayer, like singing itself is a prayer in itself. It's a powerful form of prayer, of worship, and so I think that was one way that was like the light bulb really clicked, and I took my faith on for myself. And like I like to say, I had the faith of a boy, and then when I had that reversion, now I have the faith of a man.
Yeah, I mean, we said it earlier, we'll say it again. We find that talking to all these men that we talk to, we find that there is this moment in a man's life where if he grew up with God as a child, there is some type of decision, some type of light switch that goes off in adulthood where he chooses his own Jesus. Right. We see it over and over and over again, and that's exactly what he's describing.
Right. That's true.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's I'm studying suffering right now. The next talk that I do, whenever that may be, I don't know when it'll be, it's going to be on suffering. And what I believe I'm learning is, it's easy to ask God, why suffering? Like God could take all the evil in the world away tomorrow, right? I'm looking for something real quick, Stephen. Sorry for the odd pause. I've got it right here. Isaiah 45:7. I'll read the New King James Version. Says, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and I create calamity. Some of it's, the King James says, and I create evil, right? Other versions say, I send good times and I send bad times. God's the author. God's not the author of evil, but he uses it, right? And so God could take away all evil in the world. My point is, I believe the reason, because a Christian can be asked, well, why does a holy, righteous, good God allow people to go through suffering? This is a question that a non-believer can ask a Christian, really stump you. And I believe my answer is because he wants willing love and willing obedience.
It's funny.
Right?
I just preached on it this Sunday.
Willing love, and I didn't listen to your sermon, right? I wasn't here because of the death in the family. Willing love and willing obedience is what God wants. It's the reason why he gives us the freedom that he gives us.
Right.
Because he's betting on himself, right? That we're going to willingly love and be obedient to him. Though he were a son, capital S, he learned obedience by that which he suffered. The book of Hebrews. Can't remember what chapter, right?
That's good.
So it's never for our bad, but you're going to come to every young boy, every woman is going to come to a point in their life where, as an adult or as a person in their, let's say, in their right mind of their own will, they say yes to Jesus Christ, right? I believe that.
That's true. That's good stuff. I literally, this Sunday, I was preaching in Acts chapter 12. I'm going verse by verse through Acts, and in the same chapter, James gets killed. Herod kills James, but frees Peter. And it's kind of like, why would James get killed and Peter not get killed? And so I explain that through that as well. And a lot of times it is suffering. If we learn as Christians how to suffer, in God, it draws us closer to him, and learning to have joy no matter what trials or tribulations are going in your life, that only brings people closer to God as well, because they're like, well, how could you, what are you thinking? How could you do that? How can you still praise God? Like, because in the end, it's like Stephen was saying, in the end, eternity is going to be with him. And no matter what happens now, it's not worth losing your salvation or your faith over in light of eternity.
Yeah. Other than the story of Jesus, my favorite story in the Bible is the story of Joseph in Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of his story, when he's forgiving his brothers, he says, what you meant for evil, God meant it for good.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very important it. What is the it? Being thrown into a well, being sold into slavery, being falsely accused by Potiphar's wife. But the end game for God was to promote him to the second highest position in Egypt.
Right.
His brother's end game was to kill him or just to be rid of him. Right.
Exactly.
And so God put him through all that for what? Willing love and obedience. He never cursed God. Joseph never said, why is this happening to me? He just kept being faithful, doing the right thing and moving forward. And he saved his people and he forgave his brothers.
Amen.
But so when this is why God's whole plan, he could have ended the devil before he even formed the garden. Right.
Yep.
He didn't. Why? Willing love and obedience.
Yeah.
Right. So we would learn what love is.
His plan and his purpose isn't necessarily ours to see now, and whether we care when we get to heaven or not, we may not ever know.
Yeah.
And we just got to rely and trust in that. Especially, Stephen, like if you were a young man today, or let me ask you this, what would you advise a young man today if he's in that moment of doubt or, fighting the world and the noise that's coming at them, and maybe they don't have a dad or a granddad as stout as yours that would come alongside of them to give them that? What would you advise them to do in their moment of doubt, or in their moment of fear, or the moment of walking away? What advice would you give to them?
I would say number one is start praying. Pray to the Lord. Say, Lord, I don't know, I'm having doubts, I'm having struggles. Please give me the strength to help me. I think that the first thing is to have an honest prayer with God and start that conversation with him. And then the second thing I would say is find a godly man who you respect, who can answer your tough questions, who can help you through this. You don't want to go alone. Maybe you don't have a dad and a grandfather like I do, but you can find someone at your local church, through your family, through your friends. God puts people in our lives for a reason. And so I think that you can find someone if you work hard enough for it.
That's good. That's good advice there. Yeah. What statistics are showing that 86% of the kids that are leaving the faith at the age of 18 and never to return. And so the church is only keeping about 14% of the young men and young women in the church today. And parents need to do a better job in making sure that they are grounding them to their best of their ability. Again, once they turn 18, you got to just pray that God is going to keep them on that path, to guide them and direct them to their best ability. And man, just get them out of that rut. Sometimes, I can see the world just trying to come 100 miles an hour at both of my older kids. And there's so much I want to do and so much I want to say, but I just can't. I can give them advice, but they still got to make the decisions. And I just pray one day that, that it clicks. And, they haven't walked away. Don't get me wrong.
No, I know what you're saying.
What I'm saying? Like they haven't walked away by any means. But I see them just, it's just the little stuff. They're a million times better kids than I was at 20 years old. Like I had to go to the military. I was so bad. So, I love them to death. I want them, my problem is I want them right next to me at church. I want them getting involved in our ministries and all of that kind of stuff. And they're just trying to flesh things out. So,
yeah, I mean, I've got two, I was married when I was really young. I was married from the time I was 19 to 23, Stephen. And then I was single for about 19, 20 years. And then I met my wife about 8 years ago. We've been married 6 years. So I have stepchildren. And I've got two that are still in the house. One that's 18, just graduated from high school. She works, she's doing well. And I've got a 17-year-old stepson who's about to be 18. He's in his senior year of high school. And they've both given their lives to the Lord openly. Carter, he's 17. He spends half the time with us. He spends half the time with his dad. He started to get to where he didn't want to come to church on Sundays. Sometimes you just got to let go.
Yeah.
I don't force him. Guess
Right.
what he's doing? Now he's going to another church with his grandmother.
Right.
You have to trust the Lord. That doesn't mean that you don't, try to talk sense into him or try. But what I had to learn to do, especially because they were my stepkids, is not to try to be so controlling. I just look at them sometimes and tell them, listen, you gave your life to the Lord. Now understand this. You don't just get to run off. Right. You don't get to do that. Ask Jonah.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Your belly of the whale will come. You don't get to take the Lord's spirit and then just go do whatever you want to do. Now, I used to go way farther than that. Now I don't. I just watch them, give them guidance, talk to them. Stacy does more of it than I do because she's their mother.
Right.
We have a good relationship, but I'm not their dad. They have a dad that they love dearly. And so their Lord's spirit is in them.
Mm-hmm.
God's got them.
Amen.
Right.
Yeah,
he's going to
true.
use me to give him some lessons. If I see something, I give him advice, but I'm not going to try to control their relationship with God, because I guarantee you to this point, they have a better relationship with God than I did some
Yeah,
days.
exactly.
Right.
That's a good point.
I've been fighting, kicking, screaming, arguing with God almost my whole walk. I didn't have that Paul salvation. Right. So they're doing better than I was at their age.
That's
but
good.
yeah, you give them all the wisdom that you can. And at some point, like you said earlier, you turn them over to God, and God will get them. He's not a failure. He doesn't lose the people that he gets.
Amen.
Right.
That's good. That's good. So yesterday we had a church picnic, and they had they were doing a fundraiser for, we've got this new ministry called Sparks Ministry, and it's for disabled children. We're trying to build a room and pad it up and all this kind of stuff. And they do this fundraiser where it's a pie in the pastor's face kind of deal. It's $5 for a pie in the pastor's face. And so I'm sitting down, and my son, 12 years old or 11 years old, walks up. He's got his pie, and he walks up and he goes, "I need to tell you a secret, Dad." And I was like, "Okay." And he walks up and he goes, "This is going to be for grounding me." And then all of a sudden he just smacks the pie in my face. I was like, "You little dirt, you just got grounded again for 2 weeks."
That's what you get.
They're little sinners is what they are, little punks. But Stephen, so you have children now, and you said that, one of the things I thought was really cool, that you saw all the cousins, everybody's growing up now. Now the grandchildren are coming. Are you the first to have a grandchild, or is there others that have grandchildren within the family?
Yeah, within the family, I'm the first to have grandchildren. So my daughter Claire is 3 years old. So it'll be 10 years until she turns 13 and has a rite of passage for herself. We wrote the book, primarily with the father and the boy in mind, helping your boy make the transition to manhood. But our family did hold rite of passage weekends for the girls as well. So boys and girls got a weekend. We just, because I've never been on a female rite of passage and my dad hasn't either, we didn't feel like we were the right people to write that book.
Okay. Well, that's good. But I guess my question is do you foresee, assuming God, keeps your dad here on earth, and, maybe passing that on, with, allowing him to be involved in that process, when you guys do a weekend, or?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
I mean,
my son Joe is one, so it'll be 12 years until the next one. But I have some friends who have kids that are older than my kids. And I've told them about this weekend and what my dad did for me. And they were, they're like, wow, that's amazing. Anytime I tell people about this Rite of Passage weekend, there's two reactions. The first reaction is, oh man, I wish my dad did something like that for me. That's the first reaction. The second reaction is, I'm going to do this for my kid. I'm going to do some sort of Rite of Passage. It doesn't have to be exactly our family's Rite of Passage, right? You can put your own family traditions into it. But what's most important is that fathers tell their sons, in my eyes, you are no longer a boy, but you are a man. Amen. And if every father in this country told their sons that at the appropriate age, then we wouldn't have young men who are acting like boys trying to prove their manhood to themselves.
That's right.
Right. So if you look at the sexual conquest of women, pornography, video game addictions, you can slay a dragon in a video game. Like it all plays into the male spirit, right? That proving yourself as a man. Right. I slayed a dragon. Or if it's violence, getting into fights, I'm a tougher dude than the guy next to me, therefore I'm a man. Right. These are all ways that boys are trying to prove to themselves and to their peers that they're men. Right. But if a father just steps in and says, hey son, you are a man, just by his words, then the boy doesn't feel that need to prove it to himself. So I think that's really what this weekend comes down to, is bestowing the title of man on a boy so that he doesn't have to prove it to himself.
Yeah. That's affirmation.
Yeah, it is.
For this is my son for who I am well pleased. He affirmed him. Mm-hmm. This is my son for who I'm well pleased. Listen to him when they were on the mount of configuration or whatever it was. He affirmed his son.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
It's good stuff.
That is
I like
stuff.
it. Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah. I think
real quick, just because I lived through it, it leads to things like people pleasing, looking for the applause of others. All these things that God doesn't want us to do. And a son that is not affirmed will look for all that. People get into gangs.
Yeah.
We talked about what he's doing. If you see it, we love being part of teams or a group of men, this, that, or the other. If we don't get it in the right way, we're going to look for it in the wrong way.
Right.
Gangs and, the crowd that our parents don't want us hanging out with because it makes us feel cool. And, all the pride that comes with it. That's my story, bro.
Right.
You just heard it a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's my whole story goes back to my dad being a good man, not being a bad dad, but just not doing the things that two young boys needed to go into manhood. And it stunted our growth big time. You see glimpses of it to this day. You're my pastor. Yeah. I still please. I still want you to tell me that, yeah, you did a good job, and I shouldn't want that.
Right.
It's fine if I get it. Let other people praise you. That's fine. But it's the wanting of it, or the way that it makes you feel. Yeah. All I should worry about is whether God's pleased. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But
that's
anyway.
Good. And that's true. That is a childhood traumatic issue. Yeah. A lot of times when you do that, I remember speaking of affirmation, my dad was teaching me to drive. I was probably 11, 12 years old. And I was driving, I lived in the backwoods of Kentucky, and you could take the gravel roads for miles and never see another car. And I was driving down the road, and to this day, I still remember it. I was driving and he's sitting in the passenger side, and I kind of get off on the edge, just enough in the grass to, look back in the rearview mirror and see the dust come up and, the grass come up. And I slowly got it back on the road. And he's like, man, you did a good job there. Because most everybody jerks it real tight. And he's like, you can't do that on a gravel road. And I remember that to this day. It was like that affirmation that you did a good job. And every time I would play football, he always gave me $20 after the game. like, hey, 20, good job, man.
Yeah.
You did great, kind of deal.
Yeah,
So,
my grandson
Or-
Miles, I mean, I've made a concerted effort to speak life into him, right?
Right.
So he'll be doing something, and he could just jump in the pool, and it's just nothing. He just jumps in the shallow end of the pool, and I'm like, man, I'm so proud of you, Bubba. You did a good job. And now he'll be riding his bike and he'll do a trick, and he's like, are you so proud of me, Papa? Because I affirm him. Right now,
Yeah.
trust me, I get on him too, but I've made a concerted effort
Right.
to not make the same mistakes that I did with my adult children and that my dad did with me in his life.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, exactly. That's good, dude. All right. Well, Stephen, why don't you tell us a little bit about the book, your website? Let everybody on the audience know where they can get your book, and hopefully everybody will grab that. Go ahead and tell us where we can get that.
Sure. The book is available on Amazon. You just type in Milestone to Manhood in the search bar, or you can buy it on our website, which is milestonetomanhood.com.
Okay. And we will put that in the show notes as well. And all of our social media platforms as well will help you advertise that. I did skim through the book. I just got it like late last week and tried to run through it as fast as possible for that. I'm gonna peel through it and see how much stuff I can glean from it. I appreciate that.
Looks like Paul's got a Rite of Passage.
He's got a Rite of Passage coming up. Yes, he does. I'll probably take them both. Both Addie and Paul, and do a Rite of Passage.
Stephen, what else? What else are you working on? Anything else? What else you got going on?
That's pretty much it. Just getting the word out about the book. With 2 young kids in the house and a full-time job like you, Ben, it's like I'm kind of at my limits, but just getting the word out about the book and helping other fathers and other families organize Rite of Passages for their sons, and just trying to spread the family tradition so that other boys can get an experience like this growing up.
Yeah, well, I think if it's the only book you ever wrote, it's going to be life-changing for some people. And I hope parents buy it. I hope if there's younger people here that are listening, that they tell their dads they want it. And I think it's a great thing that you're doing. Like I said, I lived through the opposite testimony. And like you said earlier, I wish my dad would have done more things for me. It would have saved me a lot of pain and suffering early in my life. But God got me through it, and it's just I think it's a great idea.
Well, thank you. My dad played a pivotal role in getting this tradition started, and he has a story like yours, Ben, where his dad didn't give him that growing up, and so when he had a family of his own, he really wanted to be the dad that he felt like he didn't have. He wanted to be a chain breaker. Jody, it sounds like you are a chain breaker in your family because your parents have so many divorces, right?
Amen.
That can become a generational curse, where divorce, the kids see it and then they emulate what they see in their parents, right? And then from one generation to the next, there's kind of divorce after divorce. You, Jody, are a chain breaker because you saw that and you're like, this is not what I want for my life and for my kids' lives, and that's my father's story too. So he was a chain breaker, and I'm blessed enough to be that next generation down and benefit from the decisions that he made.
Amen. Do you have a problem if we put this on our app as well?
No, not at all. Please do.
Awesome. We'll put a link in there for your book as well on the app. Guys, we do have an app. It's called Man Up God's Way. It is a community app. We do ask for a payment on that. We're charging $9.99 a month for it. It's an amazing app. We're really excited about it. It's got content on there. It's got videos. It's a little bit like Facebook without all the crap like Facebook. It gives us the opportunity to have a community on there and grow, sharpen each other like iron sharpens iron. And we want to come alongside of you. And we're looking for serious men who want to grow in the grace and knowledge of Jesus. So you can get that on Apple, iTunes, as well as Google Play stores. You get a 3-day trial period. So if you get an opportunity, download it, just take 3 days, check it out. And I promise you, you'll like it. It will be worth it. We've got some big things coming up in the future. What you guys don't see is we've got now a podcast studio here across the hallway. I've got a video studio going in, and we will start more content to be able to add to that, be some Bible studies, some application studies, and in order to how to apply this to your life, stuff like this, where, you know, we talk about raising your children in godly ways and teaching them to be men and women in the Lord. And so we're really excited about that. So excuse me again, Stephen. I appreciate you being here. What a blessing. I pray that when you just raise these kids, that they will end up changing the world. Congratulations on the 2 kids and however many more you're going to have. So I know you guys are in a hurry, and be praying for you and your wife, and continue to do what God has called you to do. And I look forward to seeing another book one of these days.
Yes, Stephen, tell your dad that the Man Up guys said hi, and job well done.
Amen.
Will do. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, brother.
God
You
bless.
be good and have a good one.
You too. God bless.
God bless.
You've been listening to the Man Up God's Way podcast. Visit us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and our website at manupgodsway.org.